For 10 years, a woman kept her neighbor's spare key. She watered the plants, collected parcels, and never entered without permission. Then one morning, the neighbor quietly asked for it back. Hurt, she wondered what she had done wrong. That evening, an envelope appeared under her door. Inside was a key to the neighbor's new home and a note: "I was not taking back my trust. I was carrying it somewhere new." Real trust does not disappear when circumstances change, it finds a new door. An apprentice hid every nail he bent beneath the workbench. He feared his carpenter would see how often he failed. One day, the carpenter swept them into a jar and placed it beside the finished chairs. "Why keep my mistakes?" the apprentice asked. The carpenter used one bent nail to hang the shop's first photograph. "Straight nails hold the furniture," he said. "Bent ones remind us how we learned." A mistake loses its shame when you let it teach instead of hide. Two friends met to settle an argument, but one chair was left empty. On it, the cafe owner placed a small card: "This seat belongs to the answer you have not heard yet." Each time one friend rushed to speak, he looked at the empty chair and waited. In those pauses, accusations became questions. By sunset, neither had won the argument, but both had recovered the friendship. Understanding often enters through the silence your reply was about to fill. Every night, a lighthousekeeper polished a lantern no ship could see. Visitors mocked the old backup lamp stored below the stairs. "The main light has never failed," they said. During the fiercest winter storm, lightning struck the tower and darkness swallowed the coast. The keeper carried up the forgotten lantern. Its smaller beam guided 3 boats home. The brightest work gets applause, but quiet preparation is what remains when applause cannot help. A farmer saved his finest seed in a drawer for the perfect spring. One year was too dry. The next felt too cold. Then the market seemed uncertain. Across the fence, a child planted an ordinary seed in uneven soil and watered it each morning. By summer, one small sunflower faced the sky while the farmer's perfect seed sat untouched in darkness. A plant protected from every risk is also protected from every chance to grow. A baker left one shelf empty, even when customers lined up outside. His assistant called it wasted space. At closing time, the baker filled that shelf with the bread no one had bought and opened the back door. Night workers, tired travelers, and one hungry family each took a loaf without being watched. The assistant finally understood: the shelf was not empty. It was room the baker had refused to fill with profit. What you leave unclaimed can become someone else's relief. Travelers praised the bridge, but no one noticed the rope beneath it. Each dawn, the keeper crawled below the wooden boards and tightened that rope by hand. A proud traveler asked why he worked where nobody could admire him. The keeper pointed to the footsteps crossing safely overhead. "Their arrival is the part of my work worth seeing." The traveler crossed in silence. Some of the strongest support in your life is doing its work out of sight. Every morning, a father gave his daughter the bus window seat. She thought he simply disliked the sun. Years later, she rode the same route while carrying his old lunch bag. At one sharp turn, the rising light flooded the aisle but left the window seat in shade. Only then did she remember how he always leaned toward the glare so it would not reach her eyes. Love is often mistaken for preference because sacrifice rarely announces itself. A repairman finished an expensive job, then tore up the bill. His young assistant stared in disbelief. The customer had left without asking the price, and no one would have questioned the charge. The repairman pointed to a loose screw on the counter. That was the whole problem. The expensive parts were my wrong guess. He sent a smaller bill the next morning. Integrity is the price you charge yourself when nobody else knows the difference. A traveler blamed the mountain for every painful step. He cursed the steep path, the cold wind, and the guide walking ahead. At the summit, the guide asked him to remove his shoe. A pebble no larger than a bean fell out. The mountain had not wounded him. He had carried one small irritation too long and blamed the whole journey. Before condemning your path, remove what pride has refused to stop and examine. A child shouted an insult into an old village well. The same angry words came back from the darkness, and he ran to his grandmother. She returned with him and whispered, "You are welcome here." The well answered with the same kindness. "Is the well good or cruel?" she asked. The child shook his head. The well was only returning what it received. Many rooms become warmer when one person chooses a gentler first word. Two friends argued over a coat torn between their hands. Each blamed the other, then walked away. The tailor who owned it repaired the rip with bright blue thread instead of matching brown. When they asked why he made the damage visible, he said, "So you remember that mending is also part of the coat story." The friends apologized and kept the blue seam. A repaired bond need not pretend it was never torn to become strong again. A son rehearsed the perfect apology outside his father's door. He changed every sentence, waiting until the words sounded wise enough. Through the window, he saw his father place a second chair by the doorway, then sit without turning on the light. The son forgot the speech and simply entered. His father touched the empty chair and said, "I was hoping you would come before your words were ready." Presence can begin the healing that perfect language keeps postponing. After a storm, a broken oak branch asked why the willow still stood. "The wind was stronger than both of us," it said. The willow lowered its leaves toward the river. "Yes, so I stopped trying to prove I was stronger than the wind." It had bent nearly to the ground, then risen when the sky grew quiet. Strength is not always holding your position. Sometimes it is knowing what can bend without breaking who you are. Two friends kept arguing over where to place their market stalls. Each morning, one table crept a little farther into the other's space. Their jokes became sharp, and soon they stopped sharing lunch. An old vendor drew a thin chalk line between them. "A line is not always a wall," she said. "Sometimes it shows us where respect begins." The friends moved their tables back. By noon, they were sharing tea across the line. A healthy boundary does not end closeness. It gives closeness a safe place to return. A boy cleaned one dusty corner of an attic window every evening. His brother laughed because the room still looked dark. But the boy returned with the same cloth each day. A week later, sunlight crossed the floor for the first time in years. His brother asked why he had not cleaned everything at once. The boy smiled. "I only promised myself one clear corner a day." Large changes often arrive through openings too small to impress anyone. What matters is not how dramatic the effort looks, but whether you return tomorrow. A student arrived at the village well ready to send an angry letter. His teacher asked him to pull up a bucket, then hold the cold handle until his breathing slowed. "Now read your letter again," the teacher said. Half the sentences suddenly sounded cruel. The student tore the page and wrote 3 honest lines instead. The problem still needed an answer, but his anger no longer held the pen. Waiting does not make you weak. It keeps a passing emotion from choosing words that may outlive it. A traveler lost the trail when fog covered the mountain. Beside him, a young pine leaned quietly toward the hidden sky. "How do you keep growing when you cannot see the sun?" he whispered. The tree gave no answer, but its roots held the slope and its needles gathered the damp air. The traveler understood. The pine did not need to see the whole mountain to use what the day had given it. Uncertainty hides the distance, not the next useful step. A father packed the same lunch for his daughter every school day. She always returned one apple untouched, but he kept adding another. One evening, he finally asked why. She said, "My teeth hurt, but I did not want to complain." The next morning, he sliced the apple thin and left a small note: "Love should listen, not only provide." She ate every piece. Care is not measured only by how faithfully we give. Sometimes it is measured by whether we notice what the other person can receive. A merchant stopped on a bridge to search for one dropped coin. He emptied his bag, checked every plank, and waved away a child who pointed toward the river. At sunset, he found the coin beneath his shoe. "See? It was worth the search," he said. The child replied, "Maybe. But while you looked down, 1,000 birds crossed the golden sky." The merchant lifted his head too late. Wanting one more thing can quietly make us absent from what is already priceless. People mocked the young cleaner who read one page during every break. A page between broomstrokes will not change your life, they said. He never argued. He cleaned the library steps, then studied a single page before returning to work. Years later, the town hired him to restore its damaged records because he alone understood the old writing. Someone asked how he had learned so much. He pointed to the steps. I did not have long hours, he said. I had minutes I refused to waste. A woman received an envelope from the friend she had accused. Inside was no letter, only the note she herself had sent in anger. On the back, her friend had written, "Read this once as the writer, then once as the receiver." The first reading felt justified. The second felt heavy. She walked across town before preparing a defense. Her friend opened the door, and she said only, "I finally heard what I wrote." Understanding often begins when we stop asking whether our words were accurate and ask how they landed. An old watchmaker repaired everyone's clocks but kept postponing one tiny repair on his own watch. "Tomorrow," he said whenever his granddaughter asked him to walk by the river. One evening, she placed the silent watch on his bench. Beneath it was a note, "It stopped, but we do not have to." He closed the shop early and found her waiting outside. The watch remained broken that night, yet the hour was finally well used. A full schedule can measure time perfectly while missing what time is for. A tea seller kept one cup that customers always refused because its handle was missing. A tired traveler chose it and wrapped both hands around the warm clay. "This one is better," he said. "It asks me to slow down." The seller had seen only the part that was gone. The traveler noticed the experience that remained. Rejection can make us measure ourselves by one missing piece. But usefulness, warmth, and dignity do not disappear simply because someone preferred an easier shape. An old man left one red glove on the same bus stop bench every winter morning. Commuters thought he was forgetful. Then a delivery rider arrived before dawn, warmed one hand inside it, and returned it before the first bus. Years earlier, the writer explained, someone had left a coat there when he had none. He never learned the giver's name, so he had started leaving small warmth for strangers. Kindness does not always return through the same door. Sometimes it keeps traveling until another cold person needs it. A young potter hid every uneven bowl beneath his workbench. On the 14th day, his teacher lined them all across the floor. The first leaned badly. The next cracked. Each one was slightly better than the last. "I thought I had made 14 failures, the student said. His teacher shook his head. "You made one lesson 14 times, and your hands remembered." Progress is hard to trust when yesterday's work disappears from view. Keep the evidence. It may show that practice has been answering you quietly. A shell in a tide pool asked the sea, "Why do you keep taking beautiful things away?" The tide carried off a bright feather and returned with a smooth piece of glass. "I do not promise to preserve every visitor," it said. "I make room for what comes next." The shell closed tightly around a grain of sand, afraid to lose anything else. By morning, it ached. Holding every ending inside us does not protect the past. It only leaves no space for the next gentle arrival. A guide carried the brightest lantern through a narrow mountain tunnel. He held it high so everyone would admire how far its light reached. But the glare blinded the travelers to the stones near their feet. An older guide lowered the lantern close to the ground. The tunnel seemed darker, yet no one stumbled. "Light is useful," she said, "when it helps others see, not when it proves who is holding it." Knowledge, talent, and leadership become brighter when they stop asking to be the center of the view.